Thanks for sticking it out this long. I know that Zoom fatigue is real, but I think when we get these breakout groups, it's a little more interactive and fun and engaging, I hope. As Philip said, my name is Jon. I'm really new to my role here at St. Andrew's in Moncton. I started in March, and it's obviously a challenging time to do anything big, let alone start a new position. But I'm grateful God brought my family and I here. I formerly worked in Toronto for the Christian Medical and Dental Association for just over 6 years. So I was a chaplain to medical and dental students at U of T, and did some other work within conscience for healthcare practitioners related to euthanasia, things like that. I also worked as a youth pastor for several years before that, 5 years, and then before that, I was like sort of volunteer youth worker. So I did my MDiv at Wycliffe College, and before worshiping at St. Andrew's Moncton, I was worshiping at Knox Presbyterian in Toronto. So I'm glad and grateful for how God brought us here to Moncton. It's New Brunswick is my province of origin. And anyways, another story of how we ended up getting here, but God was doing a new thing, and we're grateful to be here. So my official position is Director of Family Ministries. We do have a youth pastor at our church too, and so she works with the children and youth, and I collaborate with her a little bit, and but I do a lot of work with young adults, and I do some work with the parents, and with a bunch of other things in the church too. Philip had sort of prepared a few questions for me, and I'm just going to try to stick with that and share as best as I can. And then there were a couple other questions that came up just from people sharing at the intros that I hope to get at a little bit. And yeah, so I'm just going to make a note of that. So as far as specifically young adult ministry, having started in March, as I said, it's been like, I think 8 months. It's so far so good. There was no organized young adults program prior to me coming here, but I guess as somewhat of a pioneer, as some others have identified as my gifting a little bit, I could see that there definitely could be a young adults ministry, and so we started gathering in a way that was possible. We weren't able to do a lot in March other than be outside unmasked, and so we started to go on hikes around Moncton. There's 2 national parks that are within an hour's drive of our city, and I know GTA people are really envious of that, so you should move out here too. Just saying. But there's also a lot of other good parks in the city with amazing trails, and so we've made good use of that. And the reason for that is young adults seem to be into hiking, but not only that, but it's conducive to having a longer conversation with people. If you're doing like an hour or 2 hour hike, you can have a good conversation and get to know people well that way, and you're not wearing a mask, and people are generally pretty comfortable. So we've sort of leveraged what we can do, and that's been a good thing. That kind of built into some regular gatherings. So we eventually settled on gathering 3 times a month, and usually that's 2 Bible studies and then 1 social event. And I hope that eventually we can do, as an alternative to the social event, sometimes we could do an outreach type ministry into the city. There's lots of needs there. But we've gathered around the campfire through the summertime in our backyard. Just had like one of those little fire pits, and that's been a great way to do Bible study, but also segue into all kinds of conversations about life and what's going on, and some people new to the faith and just curious about what's going on. So our group is probably around 10 people. Sometimes other people have been invited, and we've grown to 20 for hiking type things. But generally, yeah, somewhere around 9-10 people typically for a Bible study. And I wouldn't say that I'm like I've done seminary, but I'm not like a master at doing this. And I did a lot of Bible study with medical and dental students at UT. That was sort of my bread and butter. But I would say I've just sort of tried to stick with what I think where God has gifted me, which is the relationship building and creating a safe space for people to open up and talk about life and look at the scriptures and that sort of thing. So there's many different ways you can do Bible study, but I've tried to come up with questions, but then kind of open things up and have some time to pray, and so that's been a good thing, I think, for our group. It's been challenging the last month. We haven't been able to physically gather. We've gone into being the envy of New Brunswick, as the envy of the country, to going into lockdown in September and part of October, and here we are in November. So we will be doing more in-person things pretty soon. But through the times when it was really impossible to gather in person, I was getting very frustrated, and I'm an extrovert, and I didn't like the idea of sitting in an office and doing all kinds of screen time and stuff like that. I actually decided to take a day retreat, and it was probably the best decision I've made in a while, just to kind of pull away from ministry and have that quiet sort of Sabbath time. And I really felt like the Lord was telling me to focus in on what I can do. And that kind of helped alleviate some of that frustration and just recognizing some of the needs. So phone calls have been really valuable, I think, in my eyes, for, we've got a young girl, and her dad is literally dying. Like she's going through a rough time. I'm getting texts, like just today I got a text about how her dad's doing, and there's been other families with grandparents who passed away, things like that, and reaching out and having those sort of conversations, because everybody's already stressed. And so having that safe space to have a conversation about, what's going on in their lives has been, I hope, meaningful for them. And I've realized it's a real need for people. So yeah, phone calls and any in-persons that I can do, just popping by people's houses has been good, even if I can give them a little bit of a wave. But having that human connection has been good. And other things going on, like baby showers, things like that. I'm able to get gifts and things like that, but I can't celebrate in person. But every way that I can be a blessing, I've been just sort of looking at how we can do that. And there have been ways to be a blessing in these challenging times. Another neat initiative that I've been doing, and one thing that really attracted me to this position, was helping parents to disciple their children. That was specifically in the job description. I thought, aha, this church is on to something here. It's not just the professional youth leader who does all the discipleship in the congregation, but it's also the parents' responsibility. And so I prioritize having a monthly Zoom call with parents, and I think that's been a pretty good time. So just in like an hour or less, once a month, Sunday evening, just trying to pick a time that works when people aren't too busy, and opening things up for parents to talk about, stresses and challenges of raising kids through this pandemic, be it remote learning or activities being disrupted, just life in general being disrupted. So we look at different themes like orientation, disorientation, reorientation. You see that a lot through the Psalms. We looked at things like the Sabbath, and how when we have consistent rhythms in our lives, especially when our lives have been so disrupted, I think not only is it countercultural, but it helps bring us back to God in a time when it feels like God is distant because things aren't going the way we want them to with this pandemic. So Sabbath, I think, is something that I've really shared quite a bit with our parents, and then just allowing that space for them to talk about what's going on in their lives and families. I feel like this is hopefully going to kind of build into not only just relationship building between myself and the parents with each other, but also into sparking some ideas of how can I do faith in the home, something that happens not just at youth group or Sunday morning, but something that's a regular part of our life, just as brushing our teeth is second nature to us after, in the morning. So how can we make faith second nature? With regards to intergenerational type ministry, that was something that one of our people who's participating and brought up. Like, you've got older people in your congregation, and then you've got some younger families with young kids. And I just wanted to share that I'd done some research years ago through the Fuller Youth Institute, and just the importance of relationship building for youth with people in the congregation who aren't just youth. So creating opportunities for older people in the congregation to build a relationship with younger people, that is often the thing that will keep young people in church, is that it's beyond just youth group relationships that are forming. And so as a youth pastor years ago, we used to do these family gatherings in the home where we'd have a meal, we would have a time of worship, a Bible study, and usually a game. And it was not just for youth, but it's youth, parents, and older people in the congregation all coming together to have this time together like that. And it was really special because there's something about being in a home where I feel like it sort of breaks down some barriers, and it doesn't feel institutionalized, doesn't feel as organized and churchy. It's sort of like we're a big family and we're hanging out and we're going to do it all Christian style and talk about Jesus. So so creating those opportunities is hard right now, I know, but that's something that maybe you can maybe grab that idea and hold on to it for the future, or do something with that idea. I just wanted to share that with you, but that worked really well with our youth when I was a youth pastor years ago, and I hope to do that at St. Andrew's Moncton once we're able to here. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I could share. I think the main thing that I wanted to share was just what's going on with young adults, some of the things I've done with parents, and as far as going forward, just looking at not so much what we can't do right now, but what we can do. I think that's been really important in doing ministry, and so it means that we've had to pivot like 100 times, through the last 19 months. I planned this, but it's not gonna go that way. It's gonna go a different way. And so these are these moments where I feel like God is drawing us near to Him, and just relying on Him completely to do this ministry well. I mean, the need is still there, and the gospel needs to be proclaimed, which is how we do it. Has changed 100 times since 19 months ago. And as far as looking forward to the future, more times of a longer stint of time with our youth is what I'm looking at. Our youth, young adults, parents, anytime I can get them away for a weekend on a retreat, or going to a conference, or maybe a possible short-term mission trip in the future. Those are the things that I'd like to work towards, and so that's what I'm hoping for once we're past this pandemic stage. And just one more thing, I have to say, I have done, although we have a youth pastor, I have attempted to reach out to some of our families who aren't really engaged with their congregation. And I've had some success and some failures in that people seem to be very interested in one-off events, but they're not as interested in like a regular thing, especially for families who we might see at church once a month type of thing. And so my plan and all that is continue to do the things that they like to do, which is one-offs, and just take it for what it is and meet them with where they're at, and just see what that builds into. And it may be that eventually these people meet with Christ through the fellowship, through the word, and whatnot, and want to be more involved with what's going on in the life of the church. So So there's a lot that I shared. If you have any questions for me, I can take that, or now or later after Shane talks. So.
In the interest of time, I think we'll do questions at the end, if it's all right with everyone. I want to give Shane enough time to speak. So without further ado, I'll let Shane introduce himself.
All right, my name is Shane Davis. I'm the youth pastor and technical director at Lakeshore St. Andrews, Windsor area. I've been in ministry for 19 years. Served at 6 different churches and 4 different denominations. Went to Pentecostal Bible College and ended up in a Presbyterian church now. I started running a youth group when I was 15 years old. And in that time, I made a lot of mistakes and got thrown into a very, I had youth that were older than me that I was leading, and it was very difficult. And but through that time, knew that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So went to Bible college and became a motivational speaker, traveled across Canada. I was the youth pastor up in Paris Presbyterian Church for three and a half years, and I've been here for 3.5 years now. So with all of that, it's a very short synopsis of who I am. Right now, we kind of have 3 main youth or young adults programs that we run. We run one from grade 5 to grade 8, which we average about 36 students coming out to. We have a high school age group that we're seeing about 24 students coming out to. And just in the last 2 months, we've started a young adults ministry that we're seeing about 22 young adults come to on a regular basis. And if anybody ever wants my email to talk more about the initiatives and things that we've done, it's sdavis@lsachurch.net. And you can ask me again for that later on, but would love to connect with people about different ideas and stuff. But the reality that I have faced in all my years in youth ministry is that when youth graduate from high school, churches are losing them. And they're losing them in huge numbers. The studies say 66 to 70% of youth will walk away from the church once they graduate high school. And so when I came here, I was very passionate about changing that. And so I started an initiative to start up a young adults ministry. And I've been a part of a lot of young adults ministries that have been very unsuccessful. And so before I wanted to start this, I wanted to figure out, why are they unsuccessful? Why are we losing youth? And I think I've identified a few of the reasons through conversation and just studying. One of them is the transition from a youth program to a Sunday morning program is completely different. A youth program is a high energy, high relational, fast-paced ministry. Sunday mornings are not necessarily like that. And so expecting an 18-year-old to be able to go right out of youth group into a Sunday morning, I don't think is very realistic if they have not been exposed to it. So creating something that is going to be good for like that transitional time. A lot of young adults ministries that I've seen have been modeled like youth ministry, which just extends their adolescent time. And it's just a place for them to feel comfortable, and we just want to retain them. But then after young adults ministry, it's just, we lose them then, right? I also didn't want our young adults ministry to take the place of Sunday mornings, because we want our young adults still coming to Sunday mornings. And so if they come out on a Sunday morning and they come out on a Friday night and they're kind of like the same thing, they're going to go to where they prefer. So we really wanted to offer something completely different. So after talking to young adults, we asked, where are they getting their information? What are they doing? And the majority of them are listening to podcasts. Podcasts are so popular right now. And in finding out why they're listening to podcasts, it's because they love listening to real conversations that people have. They don't want to be preached to. They don't want to be told what to do, but they want to get to the answer themselves through research and listening to people having real conversations. So on Friday nights, we've started a young adults ministry from 6 till 10 o'clock. And every week I bring a different person in, and we sit up on the stage with chairs and microphones, and we read a small chunk of scripture, and then we dig into a conversation about how does this scripture apply to your life. And I've brought in a wide range of people. We've had firefighters, police officers, other pastors. We've had teachers, nurses. I had a businessman who was the HR rep for like 30 Walmarts in the area that just came in. We had an investment broker that came in and was talking about cryptocurrencies and investments and different things like that. But the young adults have been inviting friends. It's been growing since the first day that we've started. And they're really engaged in the conversations. And I think what's been great, a great success from this, is that the people that we're bringing in are Christians. They're believers that live real lives in a real world. You know, Jonathan, you mentioned that you're in the restaurant industry. I don't know how many of my youth or young adults are in the restaurant industry. I was in the restaurant industry while I was in Bible college to make ends meet. So bringing people in to have conversations, because the reality is a lot of them look at pastors and say, you know what, it's easy for you to live by the Bible standards. You work at a church, you come into Christians all the time, but I live in the real world. You know, I work a real job, and it's very difficult to live by these principles and to have a relationship with Christ in the real world. And this is allowing them to see you can do it. It's not necessarily easy, but you can definitely do it. And it's been great hearing the speakers coming in talking about the struggles that they've had, because it really makes it real to them. And so we've seen a huge success in the young adults ministry, but it's been great because the youth are so excited. Our high school age students are so excited they're going to be able to go to this program. They're looking at it. It's different than what they're doing right now. It's different than Sunday mornings. And so they are happy with that. The other thing that we've done with our young adults ministry, and I think it came up in our first session, is young adults are very missional based. They're active. And if you're not using them, you're losing them. And so we give them real opportunities to serve in the church. We give them opportunities to fail in a controlled environment in different leadership positions, but we've also partnered with our downtown missions groups and places like that where they're actively serving in the community and learning how to live out their faith in a very practical way. And so through that experience, they're beginning to experience their faith in action, and that's been very effective, I think, for retention from really the high school age all the way into the young adults. So if you give them a purpose, they'll keep showing up. And I think a lot of them walk away from the church because they hear all these principles, but they don't see them in action. And so giving them an opportunity to put what we're learning in the church in action has been very helpful. That was a whole ton of information with kind of what we started. And I mean, through our youth ministry, I think the only other thing I didn't add in our youth ministry, our high school program, we've started an LIT program, a leaders in training program. And those are the youth that really want to dig into the church. They want to be active. And I think churches have failed in the past in giving young people menial responsibilities, like go stack the chairs, go sweep the floors, go clean this up. And although those serving opportunities are important, giving real leadership opportunities, and I said this earlier, giving them an opportunity to fail in a controlled environment, I think is very important for them to learn and grow. And from experience, being thrown into youth ministry at so young, I made a lot of mistakes, and nobody lost their salvation for my mistakes, but I definitely learned very quickly you know, the right way to do things and how to engage and interact with people. And I think if, you know, if we're the ones that are always doing and not giving other people an opportunity, then we're really holding them back. And so stepping aside sometimes and building them up has been a key part in the success of our ministry as well. And over the last 3 years, we have done a ton of stuff. I think the only other thing I'll add, and then I'll hand it over to Philip, was somebody had asked, you know, how do we engage with students online? Like, we know that there's a digital aspect for many. I know we lost 60% of our kids when we went to Zoom only, because kids are on Zoom all day at school. They don't want to be going to church online as well. That's just a sad reality. And so my answer to her was, you can't. You cannot have an online only ministry. There has to be some sort of engagement or personal connection. And what we did was we started having game nights online, but we did a poll as to, like, what is your favorite snack? And when they answered, I went to the store, bought all the snacks, and then hand delivered it to each one of their houses. So that there was an interaction before that, right? There's a face-to-face, there's something. And, you know, we have some ladies at the church that love writing cards. So if birthday is, graduation, whatever it is, they get a personalized card in the mail, you know, to them directly. And so being very intentional, and not just relying on technology all the time. And the only other thing is social media. I hate social media, but I understand that that's where our young people are. And if that's where our young people are, if that's where they're being influenced, that's where we need to be as well. And I've been intentional about taking an hour a week and just spending time on Instagram and Facebook. And as much as I dislike it, the next time that I see my young people, I say, oh, I noticed that you were doing this with so-and-so. And they're shocked that I'm paying attention to what's going on in their life. But they also think twice now about what they're posting on their social media pages, because they know that the youth pastor is watching what they're doing. So it is actually a twofold thing that ends up working out. But I really do not like social media at all. But I have seen firsthand it is the most effective way for us to be engaging and connecting with them in a practical way. So that's all I have for right now. But again, if anybody wants to email me and connect with some practical initiatives that we've done, because we've done quite a few, I'd be more than willing to connect with you guys.